"You're shaking. Please take it. I have another one at home." She didn't. But Sailor Pruitt said it anyway, already pulling her arms from the sleeves of her olive green coat before the man could refuse. The lie came easily, not from dishonesty but from the particular kindness of someone who has learned that people accept help more willingly when it costs the giver nothing. The man on the bus stop bench was perhaps 60, silver-haired, wearing a thin linen blazer entirely wrong for a November evening in Portland. He was trembling subtly, the way people do when they are too proud to show it fully. His eyes, when he looked up at her, were sharp and gray and quietly mortified. "Young lady, I can't take your coat." "You're not taking it," Sailor said simply, draping it over his shoulders. "I'm lending it. There's a difference." He looked at her for a long moment, studying her the way people study something they don't quite have a category for. "You don't know me," he said. "You're cold," she replied. "That's enough." She sat beside him on the bench, arms crossed over her thin sweater, pretending the wind wasn't finding every gap. She was 24. She had exactly $41 in her checking account, a studio apartment 3 blocks away, and a coat that had taken her 2 months of careful saving to buy. She had owned it for 6 weeks. His name, she would later learn, was Clifton Marsh. Sailor had grown up in the Oregon foster system, 7 homes in 14 years. None of them bad exactly. None of them permanent. She had aged out at 18 with a garbage bag of belongings, a community college acceptance letter she'd earned entirely on her own, and a quiet, unshakable belief that people deserved basic warmth. She couldn't have explained where that belief came from. It had simply survived everything that might have taken it. She worked at a small nonprofit that provided transitional housing documents for foster youth. The salary was modest in the way that meaningful work so often is. She walked to save bus fare. She cooked in batches on Sundays. She had learned early that scarcity was easier to bear when you stopped pretending it wasn't there. She didn't tell Clifton any of this. They sat together for 11 minutes while they waited for his car. He had called someone. He said someone was coming, and they talked about small things. The cold, the way Portland smelled before rain, whether the coffee cart across the street was still open. When a dark sedan pulled up, Clifton stood slowly and removed her coat from his shoulders. He held it out to her with both hands, the way you return something precious. "Thank you," he said. His voice was careful, deliberate, like a man selecting the right words from a limited supply. "You are unexpectedly kind." She took the coat and smiled. "Stay warm, sir." He nodded once. The car door closed. She watched the sedan pull away into the gray Portland evening and then walked the 3 blocks home, arms wrapped around herself, coat back on, already forgetting it the way she forgot most kindnesses she gave completely and immediately. 3 weeks later, a letter arrived at her nonprofit's office, addressed to her by name. Inside was a single card, no letterhead, handwritten in precise, old-fashioned cursive. "I would like to return the warmth properly. If you're willing, Clifton Marsh." There was a phone number, and below it a street address she recognized immediately as Westover Terrace, the quiet, tree-lined street behind the park where the large brick houses sat behind iron gates. Her co-worker Delia leaned over her shoulder and read it. "Clifton Marsh," Delia said slowly. "Sailor, Clifton Marsh is Marsh Pacific, the real estate development group. They built half of downtown." Sailor looked at the card again. Then she looked at Delia. He was sitting at a bus stop in a linen blazer in November. "Rich people do strange things," Delia said. "Are you going to call?" Sailor set the card down on her desk. She thought about it for a moment, not about what it might mean, but about whether she would have given a coat to a shivering man even if she'd known who he was. The answer was the same either way. So she picked the card back up. She met him at his home the following Saturday, a brick house that was large but not ostentatious, filled with books and quiet and the particular stillness of a space lived in by one person for a long time. His son, Tanner Marsh, was there too, 33, measured and attentive, with his father's gray eyes and the careful manner of a man who had long been the responsible one. Clifton explained, over tea in a sitting room lined with photographs, that he had been walking home from a dinner 3 weeks ago. A short walk he'd taken deliberately, alone, because he'd needed air and space from a room full of people who talked about money while forgetting what it was for. His driver had been waiting at the end of the street. He'd stopped to rest on the bench. He hadn't anticipated the cold. I wasn't testing you, he said plainly. I want to be clear about that. I was just a cold man on a bench and you were kind, that's all. Sailor nodded. She believed him. It felt true. What came next, she hadn't prepared for. Tanner set a folder on the table. He opened it without fanfare. The Marsh Family Foundation, which Sailor had never heard of, because it operated with deliberate quietness-funded organizations supporting foster youth across Oregon. For 3 years, they had been looking for someone to lead their outreach coordination. Someone with lived experience, genuine understanding, and Tanner's word character. Clifton had known about her organization already. He'd been reviewing it as a potential grant recipient. When she'd given him her coat, he hadn't known her name. He'd found her through the nonprofit staff page, the only young woman listed, after he remembered the name tag on her lanyard. We're not offering you this because of the coat, Tanner said. His voice was calm and direct. We're offering it because you're qualified, and because our conversations with your supervisor confirmed everything we needed to know. The coat was... He paused. It told us something about consistency, that you don't change who you are depending on who's watching. Sailor sat with that for a long moment. I told you I had another coat at home, she said quietly. I didn't. Clifton smiled, slow and genuine. I know, he said. That's the part I keep thinking about. She accepted. Not because of what it offered her, though it changed her life in every practical sense, but because the work itself was the exact work she had been trying to do with far fewer resources. It felt less like a reward and more like finally having enough room to do what she'd always been doing. Tanner, over months of working alongside each other, became first a colleague, then someone she trusted, then a friend in the specific way that trust, slowly built, becomes its own kind of home. They didn't rush it. Neither of them was built for rushing things that mattered. One afternoon in early spring, Sailor was leaving the foundation office when she passed a young man sitting on the steps outside. Thin jacket, arms wrapped around himself against the leftover chill of March. She didn't think. She just stopped. She didn't have a spare coat today, but she had time. She sat beside him and asked if he needed help finding somewhere warm. His name was Damon. He was 19. He'd aged out of foster care 4 months ago. She knew exactly what to do. The olive green coat still hung on her office door. She'd never replaced it, not because she couldn't now, but because she didn't want to. It reminded her that the most important things she had ever given away had always come back to her, changed into something larger. Kindness is never wasted. Sometimes it comes back as a letter, sometimes as a life's work. Sometimes it simply sits beside someone cold and waits with them until something warmer arrives. That is always more than enough. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.